Guess how many cars were available in 2001 that had the horsepower of a Ferrari, fit as many people as a Camry, and would let you do this? One. This one. And you could drive this beast like a boss to your local record store in 2001, and they did still have those back then, to buy this the day it came out. This being not only one of the greatest records released that year, but easily one of the greatest records released in the last 20 years, regardless of genre or whatever other qualifier you want to use. And I'm talking, of course, about Lateralus from Tool. But don't think that the parallels between these two masterpieces of music and machine begin and end with a simple release date, because the commonalities these two share transcend the simple to a level so deep that, whoa. Actually, we'll get back to that in a minute. I gotta make a stop real quick. There was no line. There's always a line. So, since this is the internet, we might as well start with something that's going to immediately piss people off. This is the best M5 ever. And this is the best Tool record ever. Let there be no argument, let there be no dissent. If aliens landed in your front yard right now and were like, what's this M5 we keep hearing about? E39 is the one you're going to show them. And if you had 5 minutes to show them Tool, well, yeah, you'd be in trouble because I'd only cover about half a song, but that song would come from this record. And that's not to take anything away from the other generations of M5 or the other great Tool albums, because there isn't a bad one among them. But the E39 and Lateralus, they were the defining moments of their lineage, you know? The point where they drop the mic and walk off stage to awed silence. And the things that made them so good were also what made them so alike. So the year's 2001, and while the theories of generations past is that we'd be hurtling through deep space in Star Wars ships by then, in actuality, we were really just happy to have high-speed internet that worked and PlayStation 2. But the digital revolution was definitely upon us, and it was taking cars and music with it. Except for these two. These two were holdfasts to an analog world that was quickly dissolving around them. While music and pictures and driving were all being turned into ones and zeros right before our eyes, the M5 and Lateralus had defiantly taken analog to its final form. For the M5, that meant a 400 horsepower engine up front, a limited slip differential out back, and only a manual transmission between them. For Tool, it meant recording to tape through analog consoles with as many tubes in the signal path as possible. It meant purity. It meant simplicity. It meant no automatic transmission, no auto-tune, no turbos, no digital plugins, no fake exhaust note piped in through the speakers, no producer compressing the crap out of it so it pops on the radio. It meant no computers. No computers. It meant that the M5 and Lateralus were beacons of analog perfection that separated themselves from a world just before it had turned digital forever. And a separation from the world around them isn't only what these represented, but also an ability that they empowered to their user. To drive this car down the right stretch of road is to play it like an instrument. All four limbs working with the car. The gearbox, the throttle, the brake, the clutch, the effort, and the steering. When done right, it's synchronized and harmonious, and you don't think about anything else. Whatever else you have on your mind, your bills, your work schedule, your appointments, your worries, they're gone for those moments. and your only attachments are to this machine, and in it, the outside world merely becomes a backdrop through which you travel. It can't pierce the reality you create inside this car. This is not a backseat car. And Lateralus isn't background music. To give yourself to this record is to be taken away from the world for 80 straight minutes. These aren't 3-minute pop songs you listen to on the way to the grocery store. This is an album of movements written in the same way that classical music was written 200 years ago, where music wasn't conceived within the constraints of getting to the chorus or getting on the radio or getting on MTV. And these are pieces that can affect you in the same way that classical music can, where you're sucked in and hanging on every note, the soft, the loud, where they start one way and end another, and you're just left in awe as to how they were able to get there. And listening to this takes the same level of concentration that it takes to run the M5 down a canyon road, where everything else has to be shut out. And in the same way that the M5 turns you into this symbiotic being of arms and legs attached to the controls, so too does Lateralus require your every faculty to surrender to it. But when you do, there's nothing else that can pull you away. It comes down to this. These are singularities. Singularities in the one sense that there was nothing else like them in their era. They were the only ones. There was nothing and no one that could do what they did. How many cars in 2001 had 400 horsepower, sat 5, and let you change your own gears? One. That one. And how many other bands were like Tool? None. But let's take the singularity deeper to the mathematical meaning. A point in which a function reaches an infinite value, a point in space-time when matter's infinitely dense. Because the M5 and Tool live there as well. Seriously, a Tool song isn't just a bunch of bar chords played over a drum beat while the bass thumps away. This isn't just 4/4 with a snare on the 2 and the 4 all day long. Every single song on this album reaches a singularity point, where the guitar, bass, and drums are interspun together, woven across and between each other, to where you don't hear 3 separate instruments anymore, but an infinitely dense point in time where the 3 have fused to form a bond of inseparable design. A new element from 3, if you will. A fusion like what we see with the M5. Is it a luxury car that's fast? Or is it a sports car that just happens to have a suede headliner? Can you separate the performance from the luxury and still call it an M5? No. BMW 2 have created a point in space-time of infinite density, and the way that they've fused multiple elements together into a machine of inseparable design. These are 2 singularities from a bygone era that, by nature of what they represent, we'll never see again.